Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen Donoghue, and it is an honor to be with you this evening in a day of celebrating love, compassion, goodwill, and kindness. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. I want to thank Columbia Gorge Climate Action Network and Dr. Jean Seifer of Rowena Wildlife Clinic for sponsoring this presentation tonight. I also want to thank explore.org. All of the images you'll be seeing tonight of the osprey and bald eagle nests we'll be looking at are from wildlife web cameras provided by explore.org with their conservation and research partners. Explore.org is an entirely philanthropic organization, and it's funded by the Annenberg Foundation under the very wise and capable leadership of Charlie Annenberg. I monitor and study many of these wildlife cameras, both because I love viewing the wildlife, but also as a scientist studying the chatting comments. Let's see what's flashing down here. So I also want to thank two people who are with us tonight. Peter Cornelissen from Columbia Gorge Climate Action Network, one of the founding members, and also of Friends of the Columbia Gorge, and also Bill Weiler, also of Columbia Gorge Climate Action Network. And Bill is also a member of just about any environmental education, wildlife conservation, and also tree planting organization here in the Gorge. And both Peter and Bill are here to help me out because I'm on a little laptop from home, and they'll be monitoring people coming in from the waiting room. I see they're admitting people now, so thank you so much for doing that. And what Bill and Peter will also do is they will track the chat comments. I won't have the visual dexterity to do that this evening. And so hopefully we'll have some time at the end. So feel free to send questions or comments, discussion comments through the chat feature down below. And Peter and Bill will monitor that for us. At the end, we'll have our conversation. Peter or Bill, can you give me the thumbs up that the technology is working on our end or your end?
It is. I got a report from Will White, who says that the sound is very low for them.
All right.
I don't know, maybe you can speak closer.
I will do that, or I just increased my microphone and I increased the volume. So I didn't get the name of the person who mentioned that. I thought you said it was a Bill, but please.
Will.
Oh, Will, okay.
Will White.
Great, Will White, if you could also just let us know if whether that increasing the volume has helped you at all, that would be great. And I certainly can speak up as well, but I just increased my volume on my end, and hopefully this will work out. Hopefully by now you all are familiar enough with Zoom so you know you can arrange the screen. This is going to be an entire PowerPoint presentation. So if you see those vertical parallel bars, you can drag them to the right or to the left to make the PowerPoint slides bigger. You can show fewer faces on the screen, just the person talking or several people, or you can have the whole screen taken up by all these lovely faces, which I wish so much I could see right now, who are attending this presentation. It's really your choice, but do know that your screen is under your control. However you want to configure it works just fine. Well, thank you again for being here this evening on the celebration of love, compassion, goodwill, and kindness. I am quite honored to be able to share this with you this evening. I am a natural resource social scientist, which means I've had the privilege to have a career of studying the connections between people and the natural world. And I've been able to do this in a variety of places around the world, including protected area management and ecotourism in Guatemala, around a national park there, community forestry in the Philippines. In the Pacific Northwest, I worked on collaborative resource management and studying concepts like resiliency and community well-being in association with adjacent land ownership, federal land management, protected area management, trying to understand how the communities that are around these other lands can also have sustainable livelihoods and development in amidst the environments in which they live. I also worked on social justice and also social vulnerability in the context of climate change. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to go on sabbatical, which is a wonderful thing to do in a research environment. And I ended up going to Alaska, which is a very logical place to go if you're someone who's interested in understanding social vulnerability in the context of climate change, because so many dire situations of the populations there, including indigenous populations, Native Alaskans. But I also went to Alaska for another reason. I have to be perfectly honest, because during my research career, about 8 years prior to going to Alaska, every free moment of my life was spending training and racing my sled dog team. I was a competitive ski juror. I did love my research position, but I'd be perfectly happy to get up at 4:30 in the morning to pursue this as well. When I arrived in Alaska, I think I kind of knew this would happen. At the end of my sabbatical, I ended up leaving my tenured research position. I sold my home in Portland and I stayed in Alaska and pursued competitive dog mushing full-time year-round. My then partner and I had numerous dogs. We'd spend 4 months in the summer working 14-hour days, which is actually very easy to do in Alaska since it's in the summertime, because it doesn't get dark till 2 or 3 in the morning. And if you're sharing what you love with your guests and tourists who are visiting your dog kennel and seeing you train your dogs and cuddling your puppies, it's quite an easy joy. And you do that because the other 8 months of the year, you have to be training and racing your sled dog team. So I really enjoyed being in up with the big boys and big girls who are doing dog mushing in Alaska. That experience went on for several years, but ended rather abruptly. And it's almost as though life kind of threw one of those things at me. I've had great good fortune in my life, many wonderful experiences, and it was almost as though it was time for Ellen to have some personal growth opportunities, perhaps. There was a major disruption in my life, a major seismic event, let's put it that way. And as a result, I ended up leaving Alaska, and the majority of my sled dogs remained with my former partner. And I came back to the Pacific Northwest and I dived into a new area of inquiry for me. I ended up doing a 52-week course with
I don't want to be seen, all right?
So if we could just, thank you so much for muting yourself. Thank you. So I ended up doing a year-long course with one of the foremost Buddhist psychologists, Rick Hansen, 52-week intensive course there. And at the end of that, Rick very kindly gave me his blessing to use his teaching and mindfulness practices in my own practice, in which I set up that I call nature.
Oh, okay.
Can those of you be mindful to mute your screens? Thank you so much. And I don't know if my helpers, Bill or Peter, can help with that as well. Thank you so much. So now with Ardent Nature, I am an empowerment coach and an inspirational speaker. I work with individuals, groups, and organizations, helping people cultivate inner strengths, many inner strengths out there: compassion, goodwill, kindness, courage, confidence, grit, resilience, and equanimity. I also work with helping groups and individuals reduce the grips of anxiety, doubt, judgment, and fear, and really be able to anchor in their inner strengths and pursue their wholesome, heartfelt aspirations as much as they can. Much of the work I do is pretty much anchored in the notion that comes from Einstein, actually, who years ago did tell us that no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness in which it was created. And so many of the environmental and social injustices and problems we see around the world in my studies and my inquiries have found that they tend to be fear-based. So envy, greed, power, corruption, judgment, comparison, those are all tendencies that have strong fear-based orientations. So my aspiration in the work that I do, very broadly speaking, is to help us move away from fear-based solution solvings where we're pushing up against what we don't like, trying to get people to change, so to speak, but rather using our innate strengths, which do anchor in our courageous hearts, and moving towards what we aspire to improve upon, change, and become more resilient and healthy. Okay, so some of you know I often bring in nature and wildlife in some of my presentations and talks, and I've had many wonderful teachers over the years, but by far the most influential teacher in my life has been the natural world. And that may be from having tens of thousands of miles and hours in the wild, but it certainly has taught me a lot about myself and about life. And one of the practices we sometimes do, and I promise this will be the last sort of personal growth, inner strength comment that I make, is that when we allow the brain to awaken awe or court curiosity or woo wonder or mass amazement, some amazing things happens in the human brains. It's as if it flips a circuit breaker in our brain. Consider this. It's very difficult to be experiencing a sensation of awe or wonder and simultaneously be doing what our brains are so tending to do, and that is ruminating on some past event with your neighbor, a family member, a coworker, regurgitating and ruminating on some discussion, which may not be at all productive. And also when we're in a state of awe and wonder, the brain is not capable of doing the other thing it often likes to do, and that is fixate on some future outcome, obsessing about whether this thing will happen or will not happen in the future. Yes, it is wise and prudent to set ourselves up for success, but fixating on the outcome, setting your present moment well-being to some unknown future may not be the most comforting way to go about. So awe and wonder and joy and amazement, which we will be exploring in this presentation very, very soon, are ways to really anchor in the present moment. And when we are in the present moment, that opens up our sense of possibility. It releases the grips of things that we feel uncertain about, which is a fear-based tendency. It opens up our creativity. When we are in awe and amazement and wonder and we've released from fear, we can take in new perspectives. We can take in new ideas from people we may normally not have interacted with. And we can arrive at collaborative solutions to the very complex problems that face our world today. So that's the inner wellness part of what I do. Now let's get to my love of wildlife and nature in an in-depth exploration of several two bald eagle nests and one osprey nest here in the United States. The two bald eagle nest will be off the coast of Southern California in the Channel Islands National Park. We're going to begin with the Sauce's nest, which is up there towards the north by that red star, Santa Cruz Island. Afterwards, we'll go to Montana to an osprey nest, and then we'll come back to this location with a very different scenario on a nest on that other island here you can see on the map. So let's begin with the Sauces. The organizations that partner with explore.org to bring us these wonderful cameras, though in this case for these two bald eagle nests, this would be the Institute for Wildlife Study headed up by the amazing Dr. Peter Sharp. And they do the naming of these birds, they do the tagging and the numbers. I just use whatever they say they want to do. So this is the current couple at this nest off the coast of California, the Sauces. And this is actually the tree. It's a conifer, I don't know exactly what species, that's been topped because there's quite gusty, very strong Pacific storms that come through here. And it's become this quite prominent nest. These guys have been here for a number of years. So what we're going to do next is we're going to show a video that's narrated and put together by the resident naturalist at explore.org, the wonderful Mike Fitz. I'm going to forward through some of it because it is a little bit longer than we have time for tonight, but it focuses on this particular nest, which I'll come back to after the video, the Sauces couple, because this nest is very emblematic of the whole process of bald eagle restoration in the United States. So let's listen to what Mike has to say about bald eagle restoration in this pair. You are going to see many snippets of video clips during this viewing. Please look at them because this presentation is about going deep into the dynamics of couples, of these raptor couples and their families. And I will unpack some of these behaviors and tendencies that we see here later in the presentation. So let's enjoy a little bit of this together. And Peter or Bill, if you would chime in if the technology's not working well.
1963, only 487 breeding pairs of bald eagles survived in the United States, and none remained on the Channel Islands. The population on the Channel Islands declined and disappeared because of hunting and the prevalence of DDT, a pesticide which interferes with the bird's ability to form strong eggshells. The bald eagle's recovery can be credited to the Endangered Species Act, the banning of DDT in Canada and the United States, as well as the work of dedicated researchers like Dr. Peter Sharp from the Institute of Wildlife Studies. However, the restoration process for eagles on Channel Islands was neither quick nor easy. In many ways, the story of one nest, the Sauce's nest, is the story of bald eagle conservation in North America. "62 young bald eagles from the San Francisco Zoo and Alaska were released on Santa Cruz Island between 2002 and 2006. The Sauce's nest, located in a remote area of western Santa Cruz Island, was first built in 2008 by male A28 and female A02, but their eggs failed to hatch in 2008 or 2009. The female was replaced by A27 in 2010, and the first chick fledged successfully from the nest that year. Midway through the 2013 breeding season, another female, A48, replaced A27, giving us the pair we currently see on the Sauce's webcam. Unfortunately, this pair suffered nest failures in their initial attempts to raise offspring. The first of their 2014 eggs broke shortly after it was laid. The second egg broke when a stick in the nest got caught around. The success was short-lived. The 2017 nesting season infamously demonstrated that even experienced eagles face challenges hatching their eggs. The Sauce's pair was determined that year, laying 8 eggs in 2 clutches. All 8 broke. Shell fragments from the eggs were 39% thinner than eggs measured in the pre-DDT era. By the time DDT was banned in 1972, somewhere between 350 and 700 metric tons of DDT were disposed in an ocean dump site 16 kilometers northwest of Catalina Island. While there is no way to determine the exact cause of the eggshell thinning, for cam watchers, it certainly felt like the shadow of this pesticide loomed over the Sauce's nest. Showing resiliency and undeterred by their previous losses, A40 and A48 returned to the Sauce's nest in 2018. 3 eggs were laid and 3 chicks hatched. They were nicknamed HP, Saucy, and Corsair. All 3 birds successfully fledged that summer. The nesting success attracted many new fans, even making news when an earthquake hit Santa Cruz Island. Dad's reaction captivated America.
Amazing.
2019 is already exemplary of the mixed success of the Sauce's bald eagle nest. The year's first 2 eggs broke, possibly after one of the parents fell on them during a gust of wind. Some believe the fall crushed the eggs, while others believe healthy eggs would have withstood the fall easily. At this time, the cause is unknown. Today, we watched the chick from a 3rd egg, which was laid the same day the other 2 broke. We cheer on this eagle family as we wait for the chick to...
All right, so we're going to take it from there. 2019, there's 1 chick. This is now we're back at the Sauce's nest. And that chick did survive and did fledge. So now I'm going to show you just a few snippets from that year and then bring us to the present moment, literally from a picture from today. Lots of drama on this nest, always, it seems. But let's just watch this because I want to show a very common behavior we see when the chicks are about 1 week old or so, even before that, but certainly once the chicks are born, The parents will bring in what we call crib rails. Usually it's just a stick, but here we have Audacity, the female, bringing in a branch. And when the adult bald eagles are bringing in the crib rail branches, it is as though that is all they can think about. The exact placement. They must be construction experts. And it's as if they forget that they have chicks on the nest. So here you see this lovely little chick, probably about 3.5 weeks old or so, who's doing the duck and cover drill. This goes on for 13 minutes, I kid you not, with the mom being completely obsessed with this branch and getting it in the exact right location. And this is constant. This happens all the times on these nests. And that's what these webcams provide us, this wonderful opportunity to glimpse very intimately into the lives of wildlife. So here, then we're going to see the next slide is an image of the other parent. This is Jack, also bringing in a crib rail stick. This time the chick's a little bit older. He's also, moving it around the nest, getting it the exact right placement. Oftentimes the male will bring in a stick, the female, and it'll take about 5 minutes to locate it and place it. Then the female will show up and she'll take another 5 minutes moving it to the other side of the nest. Perhaps that reminds you of moving furniture around your house with your loved ones or housemates that you have. It's quite an ordeal. So recapping then the 2020 season of this lovely couple, they once again were very bonded. They're very devoted. They have amazing interactions with each other, very unique personalities. We can talk a bit more during the discussion about the value of getting to know individuals within a species, as well as doing the more macro conservation as the fitness of a species. There is value in getting to know individuals. In 2022, despite their best efforts, they did lay 2 clutches of eggs. All 6 eggs broke. And because this is in Southern California, where the season is warm and long and there's plentiful prey, they're able to have 2 clutches, but again, unsuccessfully. So now we're up to 2021. This is literally within the last 2 weeks this has happened. So on just 13 days ago, on February 1st, Audacity laid the first egg. And I do monitor, I actually study the chatter comments on the explore.org cameras. I'm looking at how the community of chatters, those who are willing to offer comments, right? So it's a selected population study, how their comments may change or differ as they're viewing the wildlife, and how the community of chatters helps reframe. In particular, I'm looking at expressions of anxiety, doubt, judgment, anger, and criticism, and seeing how, the wildlife and the community members help reframe that. So they had 1 egg and it made it through the night. And many of the chatters were saying they kept their computer on at night, in which these cameras have infrared. They were watching Audacity get up, ruffle her feathers, stretch her wing, and settle back down to incubate this egg. And it did make it through the night. And then the internet on Santa Cruz Island went down for 8 days, and those chatters were biting their nails, sitting on the edge of their seat, waiting for the internet to come back on. And what ended up happening when it did come on, there were 3 eggs. And this is Audacity on the left with her 3 eggs. And on the right, you see Jack, her mate, doing the classic shimmy, shimmy face plant. Now, bald eagles, similar with osprey, the female is about 1/3 larger than the male. So she'll be doing a lot of the incubation, but not exclusively. But her brood patch, where they've pulled out the feathers on their chest, so they can put their warm skin directly against the eggs during incubation. The brood patch is quite larger in the female. The males have one as well, but the males will do the shimmy, shimmy maneuvering in order to get nice and snugly up to the eggs. Okay, a lot has happened in the last 2 days, folks. 2 days ago, 1 egg broke. Yesterday, another egg broke. As of this morning, when I took this picture around midday, there is still 1 egg left on the sauce's nest. So if you want to follow this on the explore.org cameras, you can find out how this is going to fare. The experts say that if this egg lasts about 10 days unbroken, it probably will be strong enough. Of course, anything else could happen, predation, other things can happen to the chick. But we don't know if this was the first egg that was laid, or if it was the one 6 or 8 days later. So I'd say wait about a week and we'll find out if this egg will indeed be strong enough to then be incubated for the next approximately 30 days. The incubation is about 35 to 39 days. But I do want to recap to end my notes on this nest with just some really tender moments with this bald eagle pair. They are such a unique couple. They're so committed to each other, so tender with their offspring. This is Jack in 2 different years. And look what he does. He'll put the fluff, is what we call it, their grasses, the grass fluff. Notice how he's arranging this on his side next to his wings so we can make it even more warm and toasty for incubation of those eggs. Another common trait we see with the bonded bald eagle as well as osprey couples is this tendency. So here we do have Audacity, who is incubating, and Jack has come in. It's like he's saying, here, honey, have a blankie, have some more fluff, keep you warm, but he has an ulterior motive. He's actually pestering her enough so she will get up and he will have his turn to incubate. They really do love incubating, the males do here. So in this case, the situation is reversed. Audacity comes in with a stick. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful crib rail stick. But again, she may have an alternative motive as well, which is that she would like to incubate. Other things happening at this nest, the infrared cameras are wonderful to view at night. Infrared is not seen by any animal. It is pitch dark here, unless there's a moon out, but we can see what's going on. And because bald eagles often have leftovers, we call nestovers on their nest, a fish or a carcass of some sort, it brings in what we lovingly call the cleanup crew. So mice will come in. On one occasion, I've seen a bald eagle actually catch a mouse, but normally she can't, it's usually a female incubating at night, can't really see the mouse. She might flap her wings at it, but it's a pretty small meal nevertheless. Other visitors you see to bald eagle nest, including this very nest here. This is the California quail visiting Audacity or Jack. I'm not sure which one that is. And this is a classic look of Audacity. I swear she knows the camera is there. She gives this look all the time. And you can see above one of the smallest bird species on the planet, juxtaposed right next to one of the largest bird species. Very, very wonderful. So that's the end of our tour and our visit of getting to know the Sauces couple out of Southern California in Santa Cruz Island. Now we're going to switch to osprey. This is in Charlo, Montana. And this osprey nest is partnered with explore.org and in the Owl Research Institute. And they do love osprey as well. This couple here is called Charlotte and Charlie. They've done the naming. It can be a tongue twister for me sometimes. And that word powerhouse couple is in quotations. That's actually a term that one of the foremost osprey scientist, Rob Beauregard, has used in conversation. I don't know if he's used it in any of his scientific publications, but he contends, after studying probably thousands of osprey nests, that only a few actually have the traits of a powerhouse nest. I think, if I recall correctly, he said about 1 in 100, and that in fact, most osprey nests face some sort of challenge quite often, whether it's one of the partners does not return from migration, there could be predation, there could be an infestation of hornets on the nest, there could be human caused damage or a weather event that upsets the nest, that many osprey nests aren't successful every year, but occasionally we get these powerhouse couples. And so I'm applying it to this couple. I don't know if Dr. Beauregard even knows about this couple. Charlotte and Charlie have been using their nest platform in Montana for about 8 years, and they arrive like clockwork. Now, Charlotte here is in the forefront. The female has more speckles on her chest, more of a necklace or a scarf with dots. Some males have some spots, but many males have no dots on their chest. So it's one way to tell them apart, in addition to the female being about a third larger. Now, Dr. Beauregard does put GPS trackers on osprey on the eastern portion of the US heading to eastern Canada. And at these same latitudes here on the Columbia River Gorge, going through Montana out to the East Coast, I think we can safely assume that the osprey here are migrating in the fall. They leave separately from their nest to places very far south, probably as far as South America. And it's really remarkable to me that they arrive back at their nest sites, in this case, a nest platform, within a couple days of each other. I often joke about it's as if one of them is in Peru and the other one's in Ecuador or someplace, and they're texting each other and they're saying, hey, honey, I think I'm going to start heading north to our breeding nest site. And the other one texts back, sounds good, sweetie, but the fishing is awesome here. I'm going to hang out 1 or 2 more days and then I'll fly north. And then 2 weeks later, because yes, it is about a 2,000-mile journey, they'll arrive within a day, excuse me, or 2 of each other. So let's look at this video from 2019. I'm also going to fast forward through it a little bit, but it shows that Charlotte is arriving first. Listen to her sounds. She's just very gentle chirpings as she's surveying the skies. Notice how Charlotte is looking very relaxed as she's looking into the skies. Now, if there was a hawk or a raven, or for whatever reason, osprey, some osprey don't like great blue herons, she would be chattering up a storm most likely, but look how calm she is as she is just looking into the skies. You also probably can hear some Canada geese in the background and see them moving along on that little greenway there. They're going to feature later in our story. So I'm going to just fast forward here a little bit. Charlotte does leave the nest, and now you can hear some osprey calling very faintly. Again, they're very gentle chirps. This is not an aggressive sound, and trust me, osprey can make very loud, aggressive sounds. This is Charlotte returning to the nest, and then Charlie is coming in. This is the first time they're interacting in 2019. If this doesn't demonstrate a powerhouse couple, getting right down to business immediately. Notice he's not bringing her fish or a gift of a stick. They're getting right down to bonding and mating. Whether it was successful mating, we do not know. Look at his wings here. It's almost as though he's offering a very submissive posture. She's not feeling threatened at all, but he's trying to say in some ways, I come in peace. We know each other. We're a bonded pair. It's also as though his wings are still fluttering after a 2,000-mile journey, kind of like when we get off a kayak or our skis or a boat, we feel like we're still, you know, moving in that way as well. So that's them returning. I just want to show beautiful osprey eggs. They're speckled. Each egg is unique and different. They're quite lovely to look at. Now, this nest also gets other visitors. In this case, this is a different year. I don't remember which osprey is flying around, but this cheeky black bear climbs the 30 to 35 feet up the nest platform looking for eggs or chicks. But he is about 3 weeks too early here to be getting any success. But let's listen to what the sound of an alarm osprey is. That's the alarm call of an osprey, and it's very different from the other very common call that we'll hear, which is the female calling for fish, 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 over and over again at the nest. So just some images of Charlie bringing in fish over the years to his family. No doubt Charlotte is there calling for fish. They'll feed out this fish to these chicks here who are maturing and getting these beautiful amber-colored eyes that osprey chicks get. And no doubt after they've been fed, about 20 minutes later, the female's going to be calling for more fish. Here's another image of a different year of Charlie bringing in fish. Notice how osprey, they have 3 toes in the front. They can actually wrap one of the toes around, and then they angle the fish in this aerodynamic way, kind of like they're kite surfing the fish into the nest. So now updating to the 2020 season last year, Charlotte and Charlie are somewhere in South America, probably in different locations, and a pair of Canada geese decide that this would make a lovely place to have a nest. And personally, I would gladly live on this nest platform for as long as I possibly could. What a spectacular place. So this geese couple, these two Canada geese are in this very moment, she's laying an egg, pretty remarkable to see. And because it is March, they have to contend with the spring snows in Montana. So here they are, a bonded pair taking care of these two eggs. Meanwhile, Charlie does return in 2020 and he notices the geese on the platform. He does not make any alarm calls. He doesn't try to defend the platform. It's very fascinating to watch. What he does is he ends up going to another osprey platform about 200 yards away from their tried and true platform. The locals here in the communities of chatters affectionately call it Charlie's man cave, because they'll often pan the camera to this other platform in a regular season when Charlotte is being, oh, let's just say excessively vocal, excuse me, and he'll get some peace and quiet on the man cave for a little bit. So he went there and Charlotte found him there, and they successfully decided to allow the geese to stay on their platform, and they just took up on this platform. And what did the amazing humans, part of this community, do? Explore.org, excuse me, partnering with Owl Research Institute, truck in this contraption with a web camera up above so that the viewers can still have excellent viewing of their wonderful pair of Charlotte and Charlie. And here they are on this extra man cave platform for the season of 2020, successfully raising and fledging, I think it was 2, it might have been 3 chicks. Also notice in that image to the right, you can see a deer in the background. So these web cameras provide so much. So now back to the original platform where we've got the 2 eggs. Well, the first little gosling hatches, and about 4 hours later, the second one does. Now keep in mind that that geese, as well as many waterfowl and ground nesting birds are, excuse me, precocial. That means they're born with their eyes open, with their downy fluff getting nice and big. They can move around. The parents are there to show them food, but they're not feeding the chicks. The parents will protect them from predators, and they will keep them warm and keep them out of the elements to the extent they can. But it's time to get off the platform. So mom, just moments later, flies up and says, it's time to go. The first little gosling is quite adventurous and says, okay, I'm going to follow mom, and jumps off the 35 feet, bounces on the grassy area below. The second one is 4 hours younger, after all, and was much more hesitant. And this was so wonderful to be able to see this live. I just lucked on it. But eventually the second gosling does jump, and they all are reunited below the platform. They waddle off to a nearby pond, eating the tender grass shoots and seeds, and maybe a snail here or there. Meanwhile, now update to this season on the Charlo osprey nest. What we see is the resident local great horned owl pair that likes to visit this platform in the off season. Now, great horned owls and osprey are not the best of friends. Obviously, osprey are diurnal and great horned owl are nocturnal, and they have very different food sources. Osprey are about 99% fish, whereas great horned owl are going to be rodents, voles, mice, rabbits, etc. Great horned owls do predate on osprey chicks. I've seen this and witnessed it. They'll take an osprey chick when it's just about the size of a chicken. They're not going to take a chick when it's very young. They're going to wait till the parents have been feeding it for weeks. You also see bald eagles during the day take osprey chicks as well. So interesting dynamics with predation of other raptors on the osprey nests. So that brings us up to date on this nest. Check out the Charlo osprey nest to see what happens when Charlotte and Charlie return, or if the geese are going to take up nesting on that platform again. Who knows, right? So now let's go on to our final bald eagle nest. This will be the West End nest, also part of the Channel Islands National Park, and also part of the research of Institute for Wildlife Studies. This is the location of that nest. It's absolutely spectacular. And this is a very typical sunset view. This is the current pair at the West End nest. None of these images have been augmented or digitized with any special effects. They're just snapshots of live feed. So this is the pink glow that you'll see at sunset at this nest. I want to go back though and talk a little bit about the history of this nest. We're going to go back to the reigning pair for many years, Thunder and Superman. Thunder is still with us and on this nest. Superman has passed away, but I do want to really, in some ways, honor him and pay tribute to him. Here he is gently rolling the eggs on this nest. They were such a remarkable pair, very seasoned, successfully fledged chicks every year that they were together. They did not have the problem of thinning eggshells. Here he is bringing in a stick, Superman bringing in a stick. And here are just some tender moments when the chicks are very young. These birds are very large. Bald eagles can be up to 3 feet length from tip to tip, and their talons, their feet and their talons are like the size of my hand. So they're massive, and they are so gentle, curling in their talons when they're entering the nestful, very gentle around these tiny little beings. It is a beautiful sight to see this tenderness. The other thing that both osprey and bald eagle will do when the chicks have hatched is they will fill the pantry, we call it. They'll bring in this case, it'll be fish or a carcass or a waterfowl, that prey that they've caught, and they'll just have extras on the side of the nest, because what if the fish store is closed, right? Heaven forbid that happen. We always want to make sure there's enough food at the nest for whenever the chicks are hungry. But in some cases, as this image captures, the nestovers, the leftovers hanging out the nest, do make a nice pillow for a little chick. This particular chick was a year when there was just one chick here, and here she is maturing into an amazing young chick. And on the right-hand side, we can see her. They named, the local community here named her Aria, and she's doing this behavior we call helicoptering or hovering. Now, many bald eagle nests are in massive oak trees or maple trees or conifer trees where there are branches, large branches. And so the bald eagle chicks in those environments can do what we call branching. They can hop up to a branch, flutter their wings, jump down and fly down to the nestful. They can fly up to another branch, and they're practicing their wings in this way. But absent a tree, if your nest is on a rocky outcropping like it is here, or if you're an osprey who exclusively nest on open areas, platforms, or snag trees that have been topped off, then you do this hovering behavior. And this beautiful young bird, Aria, the night before she fledged, they typically fledge in the morning hours, FYI, she gave us this view. As the sun was setting on the Pacific Ocean, she did that hovering behavior, and we were able to capture this view. And yes, this is now the icon for the Institute for Wildlife Studies. And here she is the next day fledging. Now, I am fascinated by the fledge of any bird, whether it's a puffin or a hummingbird or a raptor or an owl. I think it's this interest I have in courage and anchoring in your innate strengths and abilities so you can follow your wholesome, heartfelt aspirations. And I find that witnessing a bird fledging for the first time is very symbolic of that sensation where it takes courage, but clearly they are not meant to be on a nest. As I think everyone here probably knows, a nest is what? It's an incubator, it's a bassinet, it's a birthing chamber, it's a high chair. Birds do not live in nests. They are to facilitate the development of chicks, and then it is time to leave and use your beautiful wings. So once the chick has fledged, then we see these types of interesting behaviors. Whether there's one chick or three, these young juveniles here, the parents will bring in food, fish, or other prey back to the nest, and the chicks will follow them in. Now notice in both of these images how calm the parents are. I've never seen a parent who's getting their leg nipped at by the chick or has got their talon in the chick's mouth as this young juvenile is going after the food. I have never seen a parent bald eagle snap or get argumentative with the chick. They know that they are developing or helping to develop the aggressive tendency towards food. And this is absolutely essential for the survival of this species. And when there's more than one chick, oh my gosh, when the parent brings in food back to the nest, they get mobbed. And we saw that mantling behavior in the video that Mike Fitz was narrating. where they're mantling and guarding. If there's more than one chick, this is mine, and that aggressive tendency is very natural and normal. Now, when the parents, usually guided and orchestrated by the female, do delayed incubation, usually the eggs would be laid one, and then 3 days later, another one, 3 days later, another one. But if they delay the incubation of the first two, that then means that the chicks are hatching at about the same time. And that greatly reduces sibling rivalry, which can be really difficult. You can imagine that if there's a chick on the nest that is 9 days old and one is just born that day, eyes aren't even open yet, the feathers haven't even fluffed up, that the feeding of that discrepancy in age differences can be very challenging. The older one will be very aggressive. So delayed incubation is an important practice that raptors do to have uniformity in the chicks. The other thing that leads to these very peaceful settings of feeding chicks, whether it's osprey or bald eagle, is what? Any guesses? Yes, bountiful food. So if there's plenty of prey, in the case of osprey, it'll be fish. Bald eagles, it could be rodents, carrion, fox, waterfowl, and lots of fish as well. And then the feeding can be much more calm and manageable. Okay, come bring us up to date here so we can get to some questions and comments here. Superman passed in 2019. So what is Thunder going to do? This was November. So really, she only has a couple months until her hormones are going to be kicking in to breed. So what she does is that this young male, I'll let this repeat over and over, you will see this young male begins to court her and she's very receptive. The reason I know he is young is that you can see him flying off here. He's got 2 tags on his wings with the number 61 on it. And the researchers know that this is a 4-year-old male. They have named him Akacheta, and she has decided to partner with him. You will see here in these images that Akacheta with that 61 tag, you can see the dark feathers still in his head. He doesn't have his full all white head plumage just yet. So he is rather immature. But what you can see on the right, he is bringing in grasses or fluff to the nest bowl. So he is somewhat engaged. And he's getting in the very standard squabble over the placement of a stick that you would expect with a very seasoned bald eagle couple. So in some ways, he's kind of getting this whole thing, right? So that's very positive. So in 2020, Thunder did lay a first egg overnight here on the left under the infrared camera. We can see it. She cannot see anything. It's dark for her. So she's incubating overnight and it's going into the next day. So it's morning on the image on the right there. And she's kind of looking around like it's time for the mate to come in and take a shift change, right? It's time for him to do the incubation. Eventually, Thunder, the female here, has to get up. She has to relieve herself, get some food, maybe take a bath, stretch her wings. So she eventually does have to depart. When Akacheta comes back in, this is what he does. I kid you not. He arrives at the nest and he stares at the egg. And then he turns and starts talking. And now, if you permit me to anthropomorphize a little bit, it is like he is saying, Thunder, somebody's left something in our nest. It's as though he has never seen an egg in his life. Please keep in mind, this is a 4-year-old male. So I'm going to try to make some context here. You can imagine, if we can think in terms of humans, that a 13 or 14-year-old male could be sexually mature, right? But is he mature enough to be a parent is another question. And in some ways, we could say that maybe what's going on here. So what ends up happening is that ravens take the first clutch, both the eggs, it spears the egg with its bill and flies off with it. Thunder just couldn't do all the incubation and all the protecting, and Akacheta just wasn't quite sure what to do. And as a social scientist who studies the chatter comments, boy, was that really fascinating to study what the people who are willing to comment on this were saying about his behavior. When Thunder came back after the ravens took her egg, she looked at the nest bowl just like this, And then this sweet bird end up incubating an empty nest. And it's not as though she's preparing to lay an egg. Given the timing, she would not be ready for an egg at this time. She is literally doing what her instinct is telling her to do, is to incubate, but there's nothing there. Fortunately, they have a second clutch of eggs, and look there on the left, Akacheta is rolling the egg, and on the right, he's squawking at those cheeky ravens who are coming and trying to take it. So already in a couple weeks, his learning curve is exponential, and he's learning quite a bit. Alas, the ravens take this clutch of eggs as well. So we're now in the 2021 season. They have no chicks last summer, so they're able to spend that time together. Fall, they're spending together. Look at 61 Akacheta. His head is pure white now with his adult full plumage. And now you can see in these snippets, he's bringing in sticks. The landings are not always that easy, even for a seasoned eagle. Oops, sorry, sweetie. Bringing in sticks to his burrow. Here on the right, they're mating. This is as the sun is setting. And on the left, they're having the very typical squabbles, excuse me, over where the nest fluff should be placed that a seasoned pair, bald eagle pair would have. So things are looking pretty good. So the first egg of the season was just 12 days ago. So this is very up-to-date information here for you. Thunder's incubating on the left. On the right, we see Akacheta rolling the egg here. But then what happens? Oh, sorry, he does incubate as well. And boy, has he mastered the shimmy, shimmy face plant. He's going to snuggle up as close to those eggs as he possibly can. And when Thunder does arrive for a shift change, it's almost like he's saying, this is awesome. I'm just going to stay here and keep incubating. You can go away and go to the spa if you want, sweetie. But then a curious thing happens. When she is off, Akacheta stands up and sorry, not there yet. I want to show the feedback from the chatters when they saw Akacheta gloriously incubating that egg for the first time. They are so happy. They're overjoyed. People are crying. There's all kinds of comments going on that I find very fascinating. But here's the other thing. Once he stood up from incubating that first egg, he ended up burying it under about 6 inches of fluff. So when Thunder returns for her nest shift, she doesn't uncover the egg. She actually flies off. Dr. Sharp did chime in here with the comment of out of sight, out of mind. We really don't know. The egg could be non-viable. I have seen bald eagle pairs bury what seems to be a non-viable egg. We don't know what happened here exactly, but we do know that eventually Thunder, oops, sorry, we still got more on this one egg that's buried. Has an interesting visitor here. I know I'm going long. Oh boy, yes I am. Okay, so we'll get through these last few slides, folks, I promise. But check this out. Island fox are endemic to the Channel Islands. Indeed, there's a whole conservation program here. I believe they're trapping and inoculating the island fox, I think, against parvo, which is also happening with wild dogs in Africa, if I know they're getting vaccinated as well. Please keep in mind this nest is huge. From the rock end to the nesting material on the right, that's about 8-foot diameter. So this is actually a large animal, fairly large, probably from tail to nose, about 3 feet. Right here, the island fox is feeding on some leftover fish or something. It has not yet found the buried egg. Right there, it's a glance, that's where the egg is, but it's sufficiently buried that it doesn't unbury it and get a nice snack. Really amazing. So the good news is they do unbury that egg. It may or may not be viable. What the experts tell us is that the eggs really don't need to be rolled in just the first couple of days. There's no threat really of the yolk sac where the embryo is developing sticking to the eggshell in just the first couple of days. So then this pair is getting down to business. Akacheta on the left there squawking at ravens flying by. There he is incubating the 3 eggs now on this west end nest. The couple is having shift change like clockwork. He is behaving as though he's been doing this for 5 or 6 years, and there's thunder on the right incubating the nest. So all is so far going well with this. 3 eggs, the shift change happen like clockwork. These cameras allow us to go back about 4 hours or so. So I've been watching this, and my observations at least 3 or 4 times is that during the shift change, if Thunder, the female, is incubating, she's going to call out for her mate as she would have done with her former partner, Superman. And then she's going to depart and fly around. You can hear them calling to each other, maybe circling around together. And within 40 seconds, certainly less than a minute, Akacheta is returning to take up his duty. So he is on target. He is in the game here. And this is the power of hormones. For a mature bald eagle, the hormones have kicked in, giving all the chemical signals for him to be successfully doing all the parts of his roles and responsibilities. Here he is calling out to some ravens, cheeky ravens that are flying by. No way are you going to get my eggs this time. And we'll conclude with these last 2 slides. It is as if Thunder is looking at us right at the camera with her partner, this young Akacheta, incubating the eggs, letting us know how often do we have to tell you guys, trust the eagles. Millions of years of evolution have led to this incredible being. She likely knew exactly what she was doing, choosing a very young, inexperienced mate who now, in a very short period of time, in my opinion, I would even give him an A+ last year. Who knows? We don't know. He could have been the best student in the class last year, even though they did not successfully raise chicks. He still could have been the most experienced 4-year-old male out there. So you just never know. And here he is incubating just a few days ago with the sun setting across the Pacific Ocean. Look at that beautiful nest bowl within a nest bowl. And he's actually incubating at sunset, which means he's taking a slightly longer shift, allowing her to have a little bit more R&R, but because he is so dialed into this process. So that does conclude our story of this intimate view into 2 bald eagle nests and the pairs that have been there and are currently doing their best there, as well as the one osprey nest in Montana. And thank you so much for your kind attention. Yes, this went a little bit longer. I would like to stick around for a few moments of discussion if anybody's willing to do so as we approach the 8 o'clock hour. I'm going to ask Peter and Bill if there are any comments or questions